So we're going to be jumping around here. So because you're bringing up these topics that require a little bit more drilling down, and so the guy from Fitch and Company, Abercrombie and Fitch, or
No,
Fitch,
it
Fitch
was
and Company.
I don't.
A different-
Their
different
design
Fitch.
company in the
Okay.
UK.
All right. So he said there can only be one lowest bidder. Everyone else has to compete on design, right?
Absolutely.
And now we're not talking about products. We could be talking about products. We could be talking about services, which is in Contractor Nation, talking about services. Or we could be talking about design of the customer experience, right? So that's how we sell jobs where we're not the lowest bidder, right? We design purposefully and train our people on every element of the customer experience, leaving nothing to chance. It's got to be on purpose. Nothing is by accident.
Two examples that I will give you. Example number one is Disney. Where do you think Disney expends the greatest effort on uniforms and training? The answer should be as obvious as the end of your nose. The parking lot people. In all of life, and there's enough fancy psychological research to support this, you could fill a wheelbarrow with it. What remember is first impressions and last impressions. First person you see at Disney is a parking lot attendant. Last person you see at Disney is a parking lot attendant. They are as careful in the selection of people and their attitudes for the parking lot attendant job as a construction company is when they're looking for a head engineer. That's number one. The uniforms are fabulous. I mean, it's a little easier than for Breadloaf to have clean uniforms in Orlando, I would admit that, but they aren't wild and crazy and nutty, but they're so incredibly professional. And again, as I said, it's a nice story, but it's a nice story with hard research behind it. You will forget your 2.5-hour bloody wait in the 217-degree Orlando sun if the beginning and the ending was really great. So that's number one. Number two, as part of this book tour, didn't make the dedication page, Larry, he didn't. I'm going to be sitting on a stage with an old friend of mine. And that old friend is a guy by the name of Carl Sewell. And Carl has a bunch of car dealerships. The principal one, or the cornerstone one, is Sewell Village Cadillac, okay? And that's in Dallas. So I remember when I first was introduced into Sewell Village Cadillac. Probably most of you in this room would assume that in a showroom there would be automobiles, not Carl's. You go into Carl's showroom and the first thing you see is the most gorgeous floral display that you have ever seen in your life. He picked a pretty good florist, person who has passed away, unfortunately, Stanley Marcus, whose other part of the company name was Neiman Marcus. He helped Carl with the design. Okay, so now what do we do? And this is so much to your point. Now what we do is we don't have any cars on the showroom, so we go into a lovely appointed room and we watch a video. And what is the video about? The video is about what it will be like for you to be a member of the Sewell Village family. And 20 years before it became common, and he may have been the first in the country for all I know, he started using the loaners. So now that we've watched the video, now that we know what it's like to be part of the Sewell Village family, now what do we do? Well, we're obviously taken to the service bay. And each of the mechanics in the service bay, first of all, has their own little cubicle, and their cubicle has their name on it. They have uniforms that are, totally appropriate to somebody who's mucking about with cars, but excellent uniforms, and you're introduced to them. You're introduced to them. This is Joe Smith. He's one of our 5 mechanics. He's one of the 2 top people. Remember his name. Joe, will you give him a card? And so if you have any issues with us, call Joe directly. When the hell was the last time you got a card like that in a dealership? And that was the whole story. But per your point, it was, I mean, there were Cadillacs, and you bought the Cadillacs. And, one of his customers was Ross Perot. The Perot story is wonderful. Perot sold EDS to General Motors and went on the board of GM. And GM wants its board members to get terrific cars. Therefore, it ships board member cars on separate railroad cars down to where the board member lives. You really get a good feeling for the average car coming out of a plant that way. And Ross, who knew Carl Sewell, said, I'm buying mine from Carl. The hell with you people in Detroit. But it was again, and some of this almost sounds silly in a way, but that's what people did. They signed up for the Sewell Village family. And, what does it mean? It means, Carl used to have this thing, and, this was about 15 or 20 years ago when cars were a lot cheaper, but he said, every time you see a customer walk in, imagine a sign on their chest that says $750,000. Because if you can convert them into a lifetime customer and a lifetime customer who tells 3 of their friends to buy cars here, that in fact is the value to us of a single customer who's happy. But it was the greatest show on earth. It was the greatest show on earth. And, I am certainly not going to name names or brands or anything else. It was so sad. And there's a key point here too. I went in to get service on my car, the brand of, I adore the car, but brand of which I will not mention. And these poor buggers, they are just hounded by the bureaucracy to have high service scores. And this guy, he did a fine job on the car, okay? It was just a normal little check. I didn't count. I didn't have a little pen scratching my hand. He must have asked me 7 times, what can I do so that you'll give me a good service score? It was sad, and it was tragic, and it was stupid, and it made me feel, if we weren't in a family setting, I would use the words that I used when I was in the Navy. It pissed me off. And, my immediate reaction was, I am going to give this guy a -5, but I think he'll lose his job. But it took the whole notion of measuring service and turned it into the world's biggest minus instead of the world's biggest plus. And I'm sure every one of you has run into the same things. And it was sad. It was stupid. Hire Stanley Marcus and put some flowers in your showroom. But, every single one of you, at least the contractors among you, have exactly the same kind of chance to turn every job site into a place that is memorable, times 10. A job site where no matter what kind of a god-awful mess you're making, that people can literally eat off the floor when you leave. And those are you got to do the job right. I'm not in any way, shape, or form denying that. And I supported them 100%. But you got to have people with the right attitude, and you've got to do your best to leave some fond memories. And my point is that fond memories to me about a parking lot attendant or about a pilot who pushes a wheelchair down, that's as big a deal to me as going to some big theatrical performance or something like that. That's the stuff I remember.